who's the person that you can share anything and everything with? And then how are they in your life? Because AA meetings, and there's all, Celebrate Recovery who we're involved with, awesome. But unless you're like doing dinners together or like calling, like how real are you being with them and how often? Because if you don't have community, you're, the enemy speaks in darkness.
There's a lot of centers that help folks who are suffering an addiction and heading towards recovery, and the focus is recovery, recovery, recovery. But I love that you're deeply, not just including, but like it's a part of your pillars, or is the identity and the community. And so, because if we don't know who we are, then that has such an impact on, our mental health. And if things are impacting us on our mental health, then, sometimes we might go to substances to cope with that and to, self-soothe and all of that. And so what are some key questions that have to do with identity when you're connecting with folks in this space?
Some key questions that have to do with identity. So we take people through a timeline. So we get them to look at their age in 5-year increments, right? 0 to 5, 6 to 10. And so many times when we have the innocence of our youth, and as a child, before the world coaches us out of truth and into this false narrative and false responsibility of who we feel like we have to become for others and to have value. I would say, when, if ever, were you certain that you were really, really unique in a certain area or way? And I'm telling you, I don't think we've had anybody yet say, but it's always around, it's interesting, like that 8 to maybe 18 mark is where it's like obvious, like what they were supposed to do. And we find that over and over, that there's just this repetitive thing that's come out again before kind of this battle that we call life has beat, our giftings out of us. And so,
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we do. The Enneagram is great on where, our strength and our purpose, our joy comes alive in. And that would be another one is, we do have this 10 question list that's more of a kind of post-program, thing that I take. It's basically I did for business CEOs. But my favorite question on that is where is it that you find yourself most alive? Doing what, right? And it could have to do with geography. But typically, so let's say like I just had the blessing of being back in Santa Barbara, got home late last night, back to Colorado. But for me, there's something special about being in the water, right? Well, that's not really going to translate into a vocation. So, okay, what is it about being in the water? Well, I feel connected to God. I feel reset. I feel I've got this awe, this posture of awe and inspiration, because nature is just so beautiful and raw. So in that, it's like, okay, well, what do you feel there? Okay, great. Describe that. And then is there anything that you can think of that when you operate practically, let's say, outside of being in the water, that's close to that or matches that? And so for me, like there's these, what I would call before and after, moments of inspiration. So there's nothing that I love more than seeing somebody in a place of just, despair, and then having an aha moment because of a tool that they received, inspiration to their heart that gives them a 180, and all of a sudden you see the lights go on in a new way. And so there's that awe and inspiration, because I know even if I was a part of it, or our program was, that it was something that was like, again, outside of me, like the ocean is. And so there's a feeling that somebody might get outside of just pure recreation. So I walk that back into, okay, now how can we turn this into, like, you put your hands to something that now you get to operate on a daily basis in that space in your heart, right? And
Yeah.
um,
So you're like
so
plumbing the depths of, you're going from, okay, so you like the water to, okay, tell me more about what you feel when you're there, to like, how can you take that part of your identity and actually step into that in your vocation, or in, aspects of your life that you want to, grow in. And I love what you're doing, because that's how mental health works, right? It's like, what are the false narratives there? What is the truth that needs to come in? I mean, I could think of, like, I was just when I grew up, I was always in the very last part. Like we had it was a pretty big elementary school, and we had five different parts of one grade. So in first grade there were five different classrooms, and if you were in the top math class, it was clear. Everyone in the class knew who was in the top math class, and then there was a second to the highest math, and all the way down to the last. I was always in the last math class. And so I just grew up with this belief that, like, I'm just not good at math. And so I was in my 20s working, and there was some aspect of my job that required math. And of course, I just kind of squeaked through math in college and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm sitting there in my 20s trying to do good work, trying to do this thing, and it was required in math. And I'll never forget this. A coworker who had maybe 10 years on me, and I was just sitting there saying, I just need help with this. I'm not good at math. And she's like, why do you think that? And I said, well, I've always been in the last class in math. And she's like, but actually you can do this, and you know how to do this. And what if somebody from the very beginning had told you that you're good at math? You're actually good at math. And I was
wow.
like, whoa, like, that's so what mental health and coming alongside folks who've experienced trauma and hard things is about. And so I love, that part of your paradigm, which is like kind of plumbing through the depths of identity, which is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And so, was there anything else you wanted to say about that? I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, and I think, like, the separation that we try to get it, and it's not even, what you do that we're trying to get away from, or what other people view you as. It's like, who are you, is the question. And that's the important thing, because who you are, again, is uniquely and wonderfully made. And so there's, like, I'm of the mindset that there's a profound gift. So if we can get to that place of, like, of truth, without the you can't, like you experienced in math, uh what manifests, on the other side is absolutely incredible. And so we're trying to get there with everybody, and we just got to unlearn a lot of what the
Oh
world taught
gosh.
us.
Seriously. And then to bring in faith in Christ for people that are open to that, like, that adds a whole other element to it, of course. And I love and I'm sure, you weave your story into some of that, as you're sharing with the folks that you serve at Compass. So that's amazing. The other question I wanted to check in on you, so there's identity, recovery, and community.
Yeah.
What are some of the questions that folks in our audience are that could ask about community, that is kind of a check-in? What are some of the questions that you ask the folks in your programs when it comes to community?
Yeah, it's who's the person that you can share anything and everything with, and
That's
then
good.
how are they in your life? Because AA meetings, and these are all, there's all, Celebrate Recovery, who we're involved with, awesome. But unless you're, like, doing dinners together, or, like, calling, like, how real are you being with them? And how often? Because if you don't have community, you're, you know, the enemy speaks in darkness. And so as you
Right.
get isolated and alone, it's just tough to fight on your own. And
Right.
so to have, even if it's just like you're dumping everything on the table, even if it is a counselor, if maybe you don't have anybody that's trusted in your life, and I pray that
Yet.
for you, because it's yet say
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Absolutely yet. And so we just speak that if you don't have that person, we pray that that person would come into your life and they would be genuine and empathetic and caring and wise, and love you for who you are. So because it's so vital for all of us to have that. And so somebody has to hear your story, and then you have to be truthful. Like, we don't do half truths. Like, we gotta be exposed, naked, on the table, bloodied, and like in that place, like that's where light shines and that's where we find our healing. um, so community, I would say, starts with, a person. Secondly, like, if you can do, like, we've got guys in town, that they do a man meal once a week, and there's 100 guys that show up. And so those are great things to be a part of. So there's some way that you can connect, at large, where you're not just listening, but you're actually heard, seen, and known. So I would just encourage you, wherever you are in the nation or even in the world, just to find those venues, because they're out there. And AA and Celebrate Recovery are great avenues, but there's also there's going to be opportunities. If you go looking for them, there'll be opportunities to connect in at a deeper way. But you've got to do some work to find them sometimes. So those would be the main things. It's just, honesty with just, one, two, or whoever you trust, full honesty. Find a community that's fun, that you enjoy with. That's maybe the next level up. Could have anywhere from, you got 5 to 500 people, but you feel recognized, and you can sharpen each other. Those would be, the main things that I would say about community, is that you just got to go after it.
So, what's your theory on this broken world that we live in, and why, when we're deep in need, we're so in need, we are going to substances, right? Or addictive behaviors to meet that need. What's your theory on why we avoid community when we're so deep in need?
Well, I think that we've all been hurt so bad by one another, um, and so I think we're rightfully fearful of getting vulnerable, because we know when we're vulnerable, that's when somebody can, step on our throat and even take us out. Is um, what the lie, is. And unfortunately, like, we're in this battle every day, or we're all in this battle, and there's, like it or not, there's good and evil. If you can't see that, I don't know what to tell you. But the fact is that vulnerability is scary, understandably so, but it's also, we have to do it. We have to do it. And so, like, we've got this, scripture in the Bible. It says we got to love our life not unto death, and those that love their life will lose it. So if we're, like, self-protecting, if we're loving, if we got the ego in charge, ego's not a bad thing necessarily, but if it's in charge, um, but those that will lose their life will gain it. And basically, we're supposed to pick up our cross daily and die to ourselves. Now, in that, it seems counterintuitive. We want self-care, we want all those things, but at the same time, like, it's really about following a path of truth. And I believe vulnerability is a huge part of that. I mean, being truthful on every occasion. I mean, gosh, that's a scary thing, even because we want to protect others people's feelings, and we do everything in love. Everything's through a posture of love. But being truthful is even scary on every occasion. For the same,
Absolutely.
we don't want to offend, because we care about people. um, so that's a science, and that's an art in itself. So it's, yeah, vulnerability is just, it's a mandatory thing that takes massive courage to do. But in that courage, other people will become vulnerable in your presence and be able to connect with you on such a deep level.
Right. Right. And, shame is coming for us, right?
Yes.
If you've read any of the works of Kurt Thompson and others, like, uh, if I share what's going on if I share vulnerably, as you're talking about, with what's going on in my life, then I'm just going to feel shame about it. I'm going to just feel worse about it. It's not going to help me. I'd rather just hide it over here. But actually, shame doesn't always need to get to have say over that, right?
Absolutely. Well said. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Brene Brown's another great one on shame. If those of you that want to, yeah, learn about it, is
Absolutely.
I think it's the key thing that keeps us all down. It's fear, guilt, and shame are
Yeah.
the three, you know. So anyway,
Yeah.
sorry I
Yeah.
interrupted. You were gonna.
No, I think I interrupted you.
No,
No,
that's all I got.
one of the things I was going to ask you is, I think there are people on the planet who have, maybe a tendency towards addictive behaviors or substances, whatever. And then there's some on the planet that have no concept that's never been a part of their lives. Maybe they know someone who that's impacted, but they cannot relate. And I think sometimes those folks that have no personal experience with addiction and cannot relate, they see folks who are in addictive behaviors, not in recovery yet, and there's just this disconnect. There's this hardness. There's this, I don't get that over there. And there can be a sense of like, I judge you, and maybe consciously, subconsciously, openly or not. But what do you think that divide is, and how do we cross it?
Yeah, if you did, I think if you don't have a paradigm, you don't have a paradigm. So in the crossing though, so True Life Medicine, Dr. Randy James, there are functional medicine practice in-house. So everybody gets labs, their hormones checked, metabolism, all that fun stuff. He's best in the state, if not the nation. Highly regarded. So grateful, because if your body's on fire, your mind suffers, mind's on fire, conversely. So again, we treat the whole person here. But the bridge, he would say, I reference him because he says we're all addicted to something. So he's got no paradigm for addiction, and yet he's reading all these texts to make sure he's on the up and up with, the science of addiction and everything medically around it, spiritually around it. It's just, he's one of my favorite human beings on the planet. So True Life Medicine, shout out Dr. Randy James. But he would say that we're all addicted to something. So whether it be food, whether it be control and, having anger responses, having apathetic responses. So there are patterns in all of us that, if not dealt with, are destructive. So if you kind of position it like that, it's like, what's your, what do you wish you could change about the way that you react or you behave in certain areas, about, just your daily life, where, like, what is that? And I think we all, if we were honest, could say that we've got something. And so with the addiction thing, it manifests in public, for all to see, all of our loved ones and beyond. If it gets real bad, it's visible and it's not able to hide. And so I think the bridge is just what I said. It's like, okay, well, but you are addicted. Yeah. Now, thankfully, your predisposition wasn't towards substance, or you didn't get introduced to it like I was, at 11, 12 years old. But you were addicted to these patterns that are hurting you and those around you. And so that's a good way to communicate that, I think.
Yeah, that's great. And, you know, for those of us that think, well, that's not me. I'm not addicted to something. I'm not addicted to anything. I mean, I don't know if you can Google this or what, but there's so many things that can be a repetitive action that we do as a means to cope or as a means to gain control. We just may not be aware of them yet. And they may be more socially acceptable than someone else's. And so, yes, and when we can say, oh, actually, yeah, I do have a tendency to do this overly too much, then empathy can enter in, right?
Mm.
Then we can begin to understand our brothers and sisters who are struggling in other areas of addiction.
So good.
Yeah,
So good.
I love a bridge, right? We need more bridges in this world
We do.
today.
Yeah, we do.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's a couple more things I wanted to ask before we close up here, but I wanted to see if you have, a story of hope that you have seen either through, through your center Compass or just someone in your life that you've seen victory in their lives. Like, what is a story of hope that you could share with us?
Well, I mean, we're open 5 months and we have had like many, many miracle stories. And I don't exaggerate that, but I say that from a place of humility, knowing that it has nothing to do with me. We do have a beautiful staff. I think we have the latest and greatest and opportunities and healing tools. We've got equine therapy. We've got transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is a whole another topic, but basically cures 75% of major depressive disorder in six,
Wow.
7 weeks. It was just with a Stanford doctor and a whole bunch of the best and brightest. But this thing you're going to hear about TMS more and more in the near future. It's gotten 2 million sessions under its belt now. It's FDA cleared. We just got our chair 2 weeks ago. They're treating Parkinson's, chronic pain, obviously PTSD, traumatic brain injury. So it is kind of it is the most advanced medical tool, and it's all natural. And it's kind of designed to help people that have been on meds and that it just hasn't worked, get off of them altogether. And so, um, yeah, just everything that we do, breath work and again, our clinical staff from a heart perspective and world-class clinical perspective, they're incredible. And so in story, I think my favorite is probably our first client that came through, first responder, won't say from where, but high end career guy, has done really, really well, going up the ranks, and comes in, he's, drinking a bottle a day. First responders, firefighters specifically, they'll have, you know, 2 days on where they're full time, 3 days off, and vice versa. And they have a lot of downtime. And so, like, uh, a huge percentage of them, like, their downtime is wake up, until they got to go back. And literally, and day one back in the firehouse, they detox. Like, seriously. So that's been the pattern for years and years and years. And divorce is on the table after, I think, 17 years, and teenage daughter living under the same roof that he hadn't had a real conversation with. Like, seriously, like a conversation that lasted over 2 minutes with her in 7 years. No photos with her in 7 years, no family. I mean, just like complete strangers under the same roof that happen to share the same last name and bloodline. Um, so on the backside of our program, um, and there was some counseling done with the family. We really want to incorporate the family in this, obviously, because if somebody comes in, has new language, has new perspective on things, and even the spouse might be struggling with the same thing. So you go back into that environment. So we really want to heal together. And actually, we've seen a lot where one, graduates with their vision defense, which on the last day of kind of their stay with us, they define, how they're going to be different, what they're going after, some of the things about their identity that's going to drive them forward. But then the spouse will come after they leave, and it's been incredible to see the whole family get healing. But taking a long way to say, about a week after he graduated and daughter was in the program, just once or twice a week they'd meet with the whole family, and the daughter got some counseling on the side. They went on vacation together to Moab and did dune buggies and all this stuff. And he sent me this picture, and they looked like besties. And he's
Oh,
like,
wow.
he's like, you saved my marriage, you changed my life. And it just broke me to see this teenage girl have her daddy, for the first time maybe ever, but at least in like a decade, right? And now they're just buddies, and divorce is off the table. The wife came through, and they've got a relationship restored because in places like this, like when you get real, like get out what you put in, just like everything in life. And so they just went all in on the process. And, I'm getting still, what are we, 3 months later, like consistent texts of what's going on. And it's just like, if it was just for him and his family, it'd be worth it. But literally we're seeing a significant amount of these types of stories. But that
Wow.
was the first, out of our center, and many more to come.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, we love that. And I have to believe that a huge role and a huge piece of this success is this, three pillar thing that includes not just recovery, but identity and community as well. And then for people that are open to include faith in Christ, I mean, he is our healer, and Jesus is not sitting there wagging his finger at us. He's right there with us, loving us, suffering with us, because if we're hurting, he's feeling the same thing at the same time. I think sometimes we think about Jesus as this far away, like wagging finger kind of thing. And that's just not been my experience. That when I become aware that of who Jesus really is, according to scripture, that he wants to be with us in the suffering. He is with us in the suffering, whether we realize it or not. And so I just love so much what you're bringing to so many people, professionally, and, you know, and what God is doing through it. So it's just a pleasure to get to spend this time with you. And so as you're looking in, the lives of the people that you're serving and the people that you're working with, when you look out, into this winter, which is still winter very much here, and when you're looking out into your family, or just where God is taking you right now, where do you see beauty in this season?
Wow. Well, I think you nailed it in that, beautiful quote about his love, and he just wants to be with us. I mean, it says he suffered the pain of the cross. He laid down his life for the joy set before him. So he suffered the most brutal, you know, crucifixion imaginable. Go look up what they did. And he thought you were worthy, everybody on, listening to this, to suffer that much. And it, not only that, but it was his joy, because he knew he was going to be able to be with you, forever in this beautiful relationship. And so that relationship is like available now, to where, while it's good to have, we got to have these human connections and vulnerable talks like we, mentioned, but to like have him as the baseline, knowing that you're loved, knowing that you're paid for, knowing that like eternity in heaven is going to be incredible, and actually eternity in heaven is available now as we walk with him, like we can, like we've talked about earlier, we can see heaven come to earth. So I see the beauty in taking those that have been lied to and don't believe they have access to that, when they find that, and that's going back to the before and the after moments that are awe-inspiring, like me being in the water. When I find that, there's nothing better. So it's the foundation of everything, that we do. Well, look, if you're exploring faith, we don't mandate. We're not super vocal. It's in none of really our protocols, and what we call our modalities, but it does come through, because we are that, and we're not going to shortchange you from our experience and just go off textbook type of clinical stuff. Like we're real people, and I know we are too, so we respect that. But it's the beauty in seeing people having like an encounter with love, as I would call it. Maybe for the first time is my favorite thing, and then spending time with my kids, my wife, and um, yeah, it's pretty beautiful, even though there's a lot of difficulty that we have in the clinic. But it's all what's about to happen. So it's beautiful because I can see what's coming. So I can take the chaos, the pain, the despair, and I can honor it. And that's what we do with addiction. It's like we acknowledge it, we honor like the place, but then we get identity and perspective back to truth, and then walk it unto a new vision and way of life. And that's where our focus is. Our focus isn't on what you did, what you're addicted to. Like, we know how to pull up those roots, and then the healing journey is really about forward. And so the question that you just asked me is a beautiful one. Like, what are you looking forward to the most? And that starts a process to create a vision. But yeah, really those before and after moments. Love being out here, Woodland Park, Colorado, looking at Pikes Peak and looking at Pike National Forest. It's just, even now, I feel oftentimes like I don't deserve to be in this position to be able to facilitate what we're doing, but I'm certainly grateful, that we're here.
Well, I don't even know that it's about deserving. It's just, this is where God's placed you, and you're receiving, that space that God has for you, and you're just doing some beautiful, beautiful things with people. And because of that, you're getting to see from the front row these really amazing stories that God has for so many who have come through your doors and who will come through your doors. So yeah, gosh, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for what you're doing in the kingdom. Thank you for what you're doing in our community. And I'm just grateful to God for all the things that He is doing and has done in your life, and that our paths got to cross in such a way. So thank you again for being here today. And yeah, it's been a pleasure.
No, and thank you, and what you're doing with the trail and just your life speaks so much beauty. So thank you for what you've said yes to, and so many that you're helping. So honor you greatly, and I know you're going to keep going, and so many will be touched as well. So thank you.
Well, it's fun to be in community, isn't it?
Got to do it. Pillar three.
That's right. That's right. Well, to our listeners, thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the trail.